In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the front ABS sensor on this Dodge Grand Caravan. Let's get started. Take a 19mm socket, remove all 5 of your lug nuts, and then remove the wheel. Now with a 21mm socket, remove the 2 caliper bracket 2 knuckle bolts. We're going to take the whole caliper and bracket assembly off and set it aside. There's one. I'm going to leave this partially threaded in so it'll hold the caliper while I take this one off. Now you can take this one out completely. Support the caliper, remove that initial bolt that you had out. Now you can pull it off of the rotor. Depending on how stuck it is, you may or may not need a small pry bar to help you out. And now you don't want to let it hang on the brake hose, so I have a bungee cord ready to hold this on. I just hooked it onto the coil spring on the strut. Hang it up here. That way it puts no pressure on the brake hose. Make sure it's not going to fall off. That's secure. Now remove your rotor. If for some reason it's stuck on, use a hammer, tap right in between the lug studs, make sure you don't hit the threads. That should break it free, but if you're reusing it, don't hammer the braking surfaces. Now let's take the backing plate off so we can access the hardware for the ABS sensor. It has 3 10mm bolts on. Hopefully yours aren't too rusty. Take them all off. Hold that backing plate. It should come out that way. Now we can finally get to the ABS sensor. It has a 5mm Allen bolt in it. Hopefully yours isn't rusty to the point where you can't fit a socket in it anymore. I have to tap mine in slightly. Make sure it fits all the way down into the bolt. Otherwise, as soon as you pull on the ratchet to break it free, it'll actually strip it out. Having said that, put your tool on this. I already sprayed it with rust penetrant. I'm going to very gently try to break this free. There we go. Break that free. If it's fighting you on the threads, work it back and forth and continue spraying it. That'll usually allow you to take it off. It does have thread locker on it from the factory, so keep that in mind. It will be a little tight. Now use some needle nose pliers, wiggle it back and forth while pulling straight out on it. If you can't pull straight out at the same time, use a screwdriver and very gently try to pry it out, but be careful because if you pry too much, you'll actually snap this ear off of it and then you're in for more trouble because you won't have an area to grab onto. There we go. Take that out. It has a O-ring, rubber O-ring, that a lot of times gets stuck, so that's what you're fighting in there. As long as you can get it to turn, you're good. If it doesn't even turn, just soak it in rust penetrant, work it back and forth, try to pry it and wiggle it. It should eventually break free. Now continue following the wire and pull the grommets off of their retainers. And then one right here next to the brake line. Now let's unplug it. Now with the trim tool, I'm going to pop the ABS wire or connector retainer off of this bracket. There we go. All right. Now you'll see that it has a red locking tab on here. We have to pry this out, and this is going to unlock the connector, just like that. Now you can push on it with your finger and unplug the sensor. There we go. Pull the sensor out the rest of the way. There it is. Take a rag and just clean the surface. You want to make sure the ABS sensor sits flat up against the wheel bearing. If it sits too far out because you have debris in the way, it actually won't read properly. So now that that's good, take your ABS sensor, slide it in. Make sure it slides in all the way. And if it has trouble going in, don't tap it in with a hammer or anything. Just make sure you work it back and forth by hand. Also, don't pull it in with the bolt. I will put the bolt in here, but I'm not going to press it in because if you do that, it'll actually bend this and snap the ear. You don't want to do that. There we go. Just work it back and forth until it's all the way in. Now let's tighten up that bolt. When you tighten this, it's a very small bolt, so you want to be very gentle. As soon as it bottoms out, just a little extra, that's all it takes. It already has thread locker on it, so don't go crazy. Before I put the grommets in, I like to put a little bit of silicone paste on these. That way, it actually slides in a whole lot easier. There we go. Keep going and attach the rest of these to their brackets. It's important that all of these stay properly secured because you don't want this wire to get caught on the wheel or anything else. There we go. And then right up here next to the brake hose, slide that in. Now grab the connectors, plug them in. There we go, I heard a click. You also want to lock it down. That way you make sure it definitely does not come unplugged while you're driving. And then it's important to reconnect this on the bracket up here so that it doesn't fall down and get caught in the wheel. Press that in. There you go. Now let's put the backing shield back on here, line it up, and start in the bolts. Once they're all started, snug them up. These don't need to be very tight, they're small, and you don't want to break them inside the knuckle. Now let's put the rotor on the backside. If you have to, clean it up right here where it sits on the hub so it can have a nice flat mounting surface. I cleaned mine up so it's ready to go on. Line it up, press it on here. Let's put the caliper on. Now grab your caliper, slide it over the rotor. There we go. Line up the bolt holes and start these two caliper bracket bolts in. Make sure they start on smoothly. With them started, let's bottom these out, and then of course we'll torque them. $125 foot-pounds is the torque for both of these. Let's get the wheel back on. Start on all 5 of your lug nuts, bottom them out, and in a cross pattern, torque them to 100 foot-pounds. Double check them. Take it for a road test.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.